Okay, audio check. 1, 2, 3. Sounds okay to me. All right. Oh, I think I'm in everywhere I need to be. And up to date. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Discourager of Hesitancy, where we are building a game with no game engine from scratch. Minimum dependencies. So far, we're only got 4 dependencies, which is nice. We're definitely into the tail end of the project. We've lined out a couple of tasks for today, but you can see we're kind of down to a couple of things that are not as much in my control. Basically, art updates, music updates. This is a task we need to work through. There's about 90 words left to look through and make decisions about. We need to add some doodads. I don't know. I haven't thought too deeply about how I want to do that. But that's fine. I did finish up my logo yesterday, last night. So I've got a company logo now. And I need to turn that into some banners. I have a couple of layouts, like a more vertical one and a more horizontal one. So I got like 4 layouts I've been working with lately. I have to color in the letters by mouse, so that's taking me a little longer than I'd like, but overall I think it will be okay. Still have not bought a website. That needs to go on my list somewhere, but I don't think it takes that long usually to buy a website, so that's not my top priority. I'm thinking late this week or maybe start of next week. Maybe over the weekend I need to start the Steam integration. There are probably things about the Steam integration I can't stream, like access or key information. So it might be better for me to do that off stream. You do have to sign an NDA when you sign up as a Steam developer. So I don't want to get myself in trouble on the first game. While we're going through a lot of these businessy tasks, I've saved the size optimization tasking for last. So that's like my self-reward fun part. Keeping one fun task for the end also. I just want to see how small we can make the executable. Because all the data has been embedded and all the dependencies have been statically linked. We have a single executable for deployment, nothing else. And I'm kind of proud of that. It used to be fairly standard. I thought you build things and I would come in executable and it would just work. That's not as true in the modern world anymore. Getting rid of the libc runtime crap, or at least getting it linked in, was a pain. I'm thinking on future projects, I may want to go down the no standard lib option. Just implement all the things I use myself. But that's future me. Not too worried. So this task may wander onto the list for today. But what's on the list for today is here in the journal. Actions with no animations. So basically we've coded everything in 2 paths. We have animations on and animations off. So when you click a button, it goes in and says, do I need to use an animation? If so, I build up the animation and fire it off. Otherwise, I just do the bookkeeping that the game needs to properly render and keep state. Much simpler task. However, we almost always run with animations on. So there are some actions that have animations, sounds accompanying the animations, and other actions that don't. We did not keep them in parity with the animated version of the code execution. So we should bring that closer to parity anyways. I'm not even sure I have a list of what those sounds are anywhere. So it may take a little bit of experimentation. I'm thinking maybe in a release build we remove the ability to turn off animations. I kind of don't like that. I still want the user to be able to turn it off in case they're like a speed demon. You know, they like to do the speed runs if they want to play sprint mode a lot. And I think I know what to do to make the sounds not get too funky when somebody's moving quick. And that actually relates to this. Sometimes you click an action and it plays the sound, and you click again before that sound is technically complete. And instead of playing the sound again, it doesn't, because you can't start a sound that's already started, and I don't want to cut a sound off prematurely. Which I think leads to this one. And maybe this one again. I don't have a list of action sequences that should wait more for sounds to complete. So unfortunately, this is like a find what sounds aren't and find what action sequences aren't long enough before they're done. I don't know. Maybe this isn't as important once I fix this thing. So we're going to mostly start with sound type tasks today. This is just polishing. Nothing. And the only new feature code would be this, except that it's mostly a copy paste of existing functionalities. Although, well, let's go take a look real quick at the scheduler. So here's basically the concept of a pool. These things sit around idle, and I put the state inside the actual element. So animation has a state that it maintains, and here's an action sequence which has its own state that it maintains. I don't like that. From a generalized pool, the pool itself should maintain its own state. But that's future work. We've got that listed in our to-do list. We need a resource pool. It has 2 pools, yeah. So that is the thing we definitely want. But we're not implementing it today. Unfortunately, well, or maybe fortunately, I don't know. I don't have to make any decisions right now. So let's get started with the old tasks. Back in the journal, let's turn animations off and see if we can figure out which actions don't have sounds. New logo, hippie. Okay. So settings, animations off. Okay, so scene exit and scene enter, no sounds. without animation. Okay, so there's one. Okay. Okay. So that works. That works. That works. That works. So maybe a lot less sounds than I thought, actually. What other actions do we have? Actually, is that really it? Scene, enter, and exit? Really? Huh. All right, I guess that's it. Just scene, enter, and scene, exit. No, let's not say that. I know we have some sounds in about. Okay, so about paging. High scores. Wow, high scores paging does. So that's fun. I guess that's it, really. Tips. Hmm. Yeah, high scores paging is already in there, so that's fine. Maybe it looked like there were less or more missing sounds because of this. So maybe this actually isn't that bad. Okay, let's go fix it then, I guess. List of scenes. Animate scene entry. Easy. I think this is all that happens here. Oh, no, it does need an else. This is very, very similar, but not identical. You do not have to wait for the animation. We just have to make sure that sound is not playing. And then load the next scene. That fixes about. And they're all kind of like this, so. We don't have the faded sequence, which means all we're doing is checking for, is the music done? And as soon as that's done, then we load the next level. So that's splash screen. Yeah, I think that's it. The splash screen is not that involved. About splash, main menu. It. And then go to scene, stop the music, play this sound. We're waiting, we do not need the fade sequence. And then we exit or build the next scene. Not too shabby, easy enough. Okay, high score. Animate scene entry. Oh, the about paging. We did forget to do that. So where's my exit? Click the back button. Is music done? And the sound exit scene is not playing. Then we load into main menu. 0 and 1. Okay, so that should be high school. Oh, we put in stop music. It probably should be in there. Should also be in about. Is music done? And splash screen, stop music. Is music done? Okay. So we're getting there, slowly piecing it together. That's 3 of our scenes. New high score scene. Okay. Click the back button. Except there is no animation this way. Is the music done? And the sound is not playing. Okay. Blah, blah, blah. We always play the sound. And we always stop music. And we always wait for the music to be done. Here's something squeaking. I don't know if it's outside. Anyway. Game scene is probably the last one, right? Animate scene entry. Scene exit. Stop any music we may be playing. Scene. Yeah. So this all looks very similar. Actually, we've already taken care of these 2 steps. Okay. We probably failed to delete some parentheses or something in a couple of places, so let's just see how that goes. The about scene, though. Okay, we did indeed have some issues. Sequence do until. We are capturing things we aren't measuring anymore. Or not on this branch of code anyways. Again, a bad capture that we copy pasted. There's no fade sequence when we're on that. No animations branch. And that should mostly be it. Is my table squeaking? Maybe. Okay, let's see if we fixed all the things. There was no sound on that one. That was a sound. Okay, exiting settings did not wait. Oh, we didn't probably finish that then. Scene not waiting on exit. Word sounds to finish. We'll come back to that. Now we have the paging sounds. Good. Okay. High scores. That's basically it. Okay. So back to settings scene. Do until, except in this case we have no animation. We're just waiting for the sound to finish. And is music done? Means we also need to stop the music. And that should just about do it. I said just about. All right, curly brace. Semicolon. Okay. Oh, splash screen. Oh, splash screen. Okay. That's better. Okay, splash screen. Easy. Oh, shoot. Oh, shoot. Re-embedding a little bit here. Shoot. That's all right. We'll figure it out. This might take a couple of minutes. Shoot. Oh, well. Basically, marking those is done. Moving this one up, since the sounds, since this thing should probably fix the other thing. I think that's the answer there. Yeah, we're going to be at this for a little bit. So here in animation, we maintain a state for each animation, which I don't like. I want this state to not be part of animation. I want it to be part of the pool that maintains the status of these things. Animation should know, am I running or am I not running? That is all. Only the pool should say whether it's available. Same thing with the action sequence. It also has a state. Very similar. I think we can get rid of this state as well, but again, I'm not doing that until we go make a generic pool object, which would be very nice. But that's neither here nor there. So I'm hoping we don't have to do this for sound. Or we can at least have the rough prototype of the way we want the pools to work by the end of the day. A lot of sounds we can get from the pool. In fact, we don't even have to interact with this pool at all most of the time. Yeah. We just pass in what asset we want it to play and say go. Which is very nice. Animation has a lot of individual configuration that needs to be done. Sounds mostly don't. Most sounds are just play the sound as recorded. We'll still maintain the options for play a sound, where you do get to configure all sorts of things, but Ode to Victory was 23 megabytes. Sheesh. They're like minute and a half songs, or yeah, everything we picked was basically sub 2 minute. or near enough. I mean, 134. So yeah, we're gonna have to compress the audio eventually. That'll be good. We cut those down by a quarter. That means that this one, the biggest one here, would be 24, be maybe 6 megabytes, 4 megabytes. Yeah, we need to shrink the executable. 4 megabytes, 3 megabytes. I don't want to embed. I think I get a factor of 4 out without resorting to MP3 compression algorithms. I wonder if I can get more compression. Well, with sound, there's lots of. The convenience of the sound data being ready to play straight out of the warehouse is very nice. But maybe the sound, we need to make a sound library eventually. Then we can store compressed audio that is signal compressed. Okay, splash screen makes a whoosh. We still need to fix that banner. Okay, that's basically it. Animation, non-animations are all working. Quit. That's it. Okay. Journal. That's all done. Turn off animations. And found that most work okay. Except about scene, changing pages, and all scene enter exit sounds. That has now been fixed. Easy fix. Fixed up some non-animated branches of actions that didn't have sounds. Okay. Part 1. Part 2, we're going to do this thing with the scheduler. Plus, I just kind of like the way it's worked out with the other things, so. We're going to sound pool max, sound count. One thing we're going to do is we're going to make our own state called the scheduler state, which nobody else needs to know. Is that true? Let's make it public for now. So let's say idle waiting or queued and running. Okay. Let's see here. So number one, sound, get sound. Actual convenience overload for this. That takes an asset. Gets me the thing. Get action, get animation, all of that. It's been largely be the same. I'll process sounds before I process action sequences, actually. Action sequences may have the play sound element inside of them, so if the sound finishes, then when we process the action sequences, it should know it's finished within the same frame. Okay. Initialization. There is no initialization. Start with this code here as a starting point. Except instead of action sequence, we will deal with sounds. Scheduler state. Max sound count. Sequence will become sound. Sound pool. And sound pool states. Sound slots. Hey, G Pinelli. How am I doing? I'm doing good. I'm doing good. I'm doing great. We're just slowly grinding away at the end of the project here. Cleaning up some sound issues. How's your game going? I took a little look yesterday. Looks like we're making a little progress. Or sounds like we're doing a little progress. One of the nice things about maintaining the state with the sound is that we can update it ourselves. Maybe we simplify even more. Hope I can finish it today. Nice, nice. At least taking scene management out of the question. Yeah. Well, and even that can get more complicated. Like for a very simple game, scene management isn't too bad. But then, like each scene can also have multiple layers, which I'm not doing in this game. But I can definitely see where you might want like a 3D viewport, or a 2D viewport that includes your game world. But then you also have your HUD, so you actually have a different layer for like UI elements versus the game elements. So then you got layer management. Like things can get a little bit more complicated. If you keep it at simple scene management, not too bad. Um, Maybe we change it. Let's just play around with this a little bit, just for a minute. Maybe we don't want queued. Maybe we just want reserved. We're idle or you're reserved. Maybe we just say available and reserved. Nope. Let's go back to idle. Idle, queued, and running. All right, so it's idle. Queue it up. Yeah, after I finish this one up, I'll start another game a bit more complex. The scene part can be done using a scene graph. Yep. Yes. Build something simple, then build something more complicated, then something more complicated after that. That's how you do it. You don't jump in creating your magnum opus. Big mistake. A lot of people have a big dream, but haven't done the basics. Okay. Get sound. Same exact thing. Except need to be able to set file. Since we we can just assert set file to whatever that is. And return the result. Just a convenience method for us. Nothing too crazy. Then the tricky part is process sounds. Actually, it's less complicated than the action sequences are, so Okay, so we want to do 2 different checks, depending on what's going on here. You have any ideas or games to clone that are a bit more complex? Yeah, so I guess, what kinds of games do you like? There are tons and tons of like technical platformers or Metroidvanias, roguelikes. Those all have more complex systems without most of those requiring more complex technology. Does that make sense? You can build a fairly simple roguelike without having to upgrade your renderer a bunch. In other words, same with like Metroidvania, 2D platformers. None of those would require much better graphics or much better sound handling, right? The things that you'll do for a technical programmer, you'll have your fake physics engine, right? It doesn't have to be a real physics engine. It's literally just, am I on a platform? Am I on an edge of a block? When you click the button, some things like that. You can fudge the physics a lot. It can be pretty hand wavy. But if you just even skip that and just do like a top-down dungeon crawler, those can be complex in the game systems idea, like the game mechanics. You know, you can have your inventories and whatnot. So let's see, what games would I clone next? Or like a nice 2D racing game that might get you more physics if you want. You'd have to have more realistic collision and physics responses. Although even then, like if you played on the old like Atari and all those old games, their physics in their racing games wasn't any good. I guess it's what depends on what you're into. Do you like exploring? Do you like building combos that execute with skill? Or I don't know, what games do you play? What do you play? Let's start with that. I would not start with a first person shooter. Expectations for those are very high. Although I've watched my kids, shoot other eggs. The physics for bullet hits egg is not rocket science mostly. Mostly indie games like roguelike strategic games, yeah. Okay. So you got your Dead Cells. That's a great roguelike. I really liked that one. And it's a platformer. A lot of game ideas can come through on a platformer type of thing. Your Metroid, your Castlevania, Ori and the Blind Forest. Those were all platformers, Hollow Knight. But only Dead Cells was a roguelike version of that. Strategic games. So I liked Slay the Spire. It's a card game, so it's more turn-based, which might be a more approachable first game. Because then you can set states like, hey, it's the player's turn, do the thing. They select their actions, and then you resolve the actions. Like it's very lockstep. If you do a turn-based game, doesn't have to necessarily be deck of cards or dice-based, but those are good places to start. And I do really like Slay the Spire. I should take playing it more seriously for as many hours as I've put in, but it's often just kind of like my idle game. Turn-based might be good. Never done something like that, and it does sound fun. There are some very deep, very deep turn-based games like chess or Go, right? So yeah, maybe a turn-based roguelike would be good as a second game. I have an idea for a simultaneous action turn-based game. So every round happens in each round happens, but both players select their actions without knowing the other person's, but then all actions resolve at the same time. So it's not your turn, my turn. It's everybody choose your actions, everybody acts. Yeah, Darkest Dungeons was great. Actually, I never beat that one. I got most of the way through, and then something happened in life, and I never went back to it. That's a great game. Yeah, Darkest Dungeon is great. Like a team building game. Oh, and the announcer's voice is so good. Although you're from Brazil, so I don't know if the translated voiceover was as good, but the English voice actor was so good. It really captured the feel of the game. Yeah, Darkest Dungeon. Do it, Darkest Dungeon. That's good stuff. Um, let's see here. What was I doing? Hit sound. We're actually going to do this. We need to initialize the pool a little bit. We're just going to set all of them to idle to start with. Getting a sound, we already talked about, it's not too tricky. Okay, so if the state is idle, we don't care. If it's equal to queued, we want to say, is the sound if it's queued, if sound is playing, then we update it to running. I don't think sound itself has any update function. So that's if it's queued. If it's running, just simplify the code a little bit. Just get the state once. There we go. We'll just state equals queued, and if the sound is playing, and we tell it it's running. If it's running, and the sound is not playing, then we put it back to idle. That's basically it, right? Gosh, I hope so. It is really good. I don't translate the games I play. Okay, yeah. I guess after I finish this, the next step is dealing with textures and batch rendering. Yep. That sounds like a good next couple of steps. I've done some things here in this game when I was just starting off, when I was starting to figure out batch rendering, that I don't regret now, but I'm like, I could do better. But I'm also at the point where I'm like, I need to finish this game, so like that's all back in my old to-do list of things to make better, right? This is all the stuff I'm gonna have to work on between games. So one step at a time. Yeah, textures gives you a lot of flexibility and power that just colors don't. Unless you get really crazy good with shaders. So where do I set it? Or okay. Active sounds. If state equals. It's not equal to idle. Basically, how many do I have to have live at any given moment? If the state is not idle, active sounds increments. If m underscore max number of active sounds is less than the number of active sounds I currently have, then we make the assignment. Scene, I think. Nope. On exit, max. Max number of active sounds. Now, this is sounds managed by the scheduler specifically. All right, let's just see what happens when we check it out. See where we're at. Not even sure how to make a batch renderer. I guess a map between each texture with a set of calls, and at the end of frame, just for the calls for that texture. There are multiple ways to do it, and it depends on what you're trying to batch. The idea is, let's see here, and maybe I'm too new to explain it clearly, but you have a vertex buffer which contains maybe your float x, y, red, green, blue, alpha right now, right? If you're doing color-based stuff. Well, a different kind of vertex buffer for like, this is for color triangles. But maybe you have a texture triangle, and it'll have a vertex buffer. And each vertex will be, so this vertex buffer should contain 3 of these, right? 3 per triangle. A texture triangle should have 3 times the number of triangles. And let's just keep this color, actually. Let's keep it simple. 3 times the number of triangles. So 1 vertex per corner of the triangle. And those are still float x, y, red, green, blue, alpha, right? So what you have is, instead of 3 vertices, you need to have an array of 3 times some number of vertices. You still have to tell the renderer, here's how many vertices there are, and here's how they map to triangle indices. So you'll still have to do your indices mapping, and you'll still have to do your vertex buffer layout to tell the GPU where X and Y are, and where red, green, blue, and alpha are. But ultimately, it's just you're sending one chunk of memory and saying render a whole bunch of triangles instead of here's a small chunk of memory, render this one triangle. So the thing is, your CPU and your RAM has a whole bunch of data on it. You have to get that data into the GPU. Well, each call to the GPU goes across the data bus, and then results have to return through that data bus. So each GPU call has some transport associated with it. And the goal with batch rendering is you want to send a large chunk of data to the GPU and say render lots of things, and then tell me the result, because then you're moving a lot of render information in one draw call or in one update call. Whereas if you had a whole bunch of these little tiny triangle buffers, well, you send a little bit of data and then wait and then send a little bit of data, and it's that data bus is just sitting idle a lot of the time. Hey, JTL. So I send a bigger buffer with all vertices and connect the dots. So yeah, so that's one thing you can do. Another thing you can do is once you have something like this, you can send multiple textures and still do everything in a single draw call. So if you're doing like a texture triangle, you'll still need like 3 times the number of triangles. You'll need a float, X, Y. You might have a red, green, blue, alpha for each vertex. So this is how you can fade your texture to alpha to disappear and to fade back in if you were able to multiply by a color. Or you can fade it to black instead of fading it to alpha. All sorts of things you do. But then you might also have a well, you have to bind a texture, and then you assume texture slot 0 for the shader. Right, so if you're just sending one texture triangle, which I kind of do, I'll send 2 triangles with one texture, just a quad. And I'll say, bind this texture, draw these 2 triangles, and I'm done, right? That happens semi-regularly. But if you want to batch it up, batch, texture triangle, batch. You can bind texture slot 0, 1, 2, 3, right? And we do this in this game as well. 1, 2, 3. Then your triangle, every vertex has to say X, Y, red, green, blue, alpha, maybe. And I have to tell it which texture slot it should grab its texture coordinates from. Okay, so I can have 4 quads all in one vertex buffer, and each one reference a different texture slot, and bind 4 different texture slots at the same time. And this still is one draw call. I bind 4 textures. I tell the GPU, here's the vertex buffer, and render all of it. I just have to make my vertex itself contain enough information to tell which texture slot to sample from. Does that make sense? So that way you can have, a big spaceship with maybe, this is the healthy spaceship texture. This is the slightly damaged spaceship texture. This is the very damaged. And maybe you're sampling for each of these quads, the body, maybe the wing is slightly damaged, and maybe the fuselage, the rear thrusters are very damaged. So you can sample different pieces off the different textures all at once in a single draw call. So you can batch more vertices, and you can also batch more draws per texture. You can draw multiple textures per draw, etc., etc. It gets, I guess, the more I've learned about shaders and how the things work, like you can write shaders that do some crazy, amazing things. None of which I'm actually doing right now, except for, this is about as complicated as I get. instead of one texture per color with all vertices. Yeah, so let me see if I can dig up word sleuth, assets, shaders, my texture texture batch. So here's my texture batch vertex shader. I say I've got a position, X, Y. I've got texture coordinates. So that's the UV coordinates. I've got a texture slot number, and I have a color. And I pass basically all that information straight into the texture batch fragment shader. So each fragment gets a color, a texture coordinate, and a texture slot as a float. And all I do is I say cast that texture slot to an index, and I've got 5 textures that I can sample from. And this is OpenGL 3.3. So even like I'm forcing myself to be way more limited than I should be. I should be able to do some other crazy things here, but I don't need it. And I'd say if the texture slot is negative, we just render a horrible bright magenta, right? So I can tell I did something wrong in my code. Visual inspection. If I was using OpenGL 4, if I allowed that, I could just sample the texture by index. I can't do that. This variable won't resolve in 3.3 on all graphics cards. So instead I switch based on the text slot. And then I say sample off texture 0, slot 0, sample off texture slot 1, sample off texture slot 2, etc., etc. Then I do the final color multiply to, fade to black or fade to alpha. I can do different things with the color. But by default, my color is white, right? Because then you multiply anything by white and you get itself back. So yeah, I'm passing multiple textures and multiple vertices, multiple triangles per vertex buffer. Yep. So yeah, the idea is just transfer larger chunks of data per draw call. That's sort of the idea. Because you define your vertices, you can define it however you like. You can put as much or as little information as you like in there. Okay, scheduler. Statement has no effect. Oh, equal. You're right. Okay. I think I copy pasted. There we go. That should make a lot of things more correct. So what is that 5 textures? Does it all textures and games in there? It's whatever I bind. So for example, bookshelf. My bookshelf. Oh, not the bookshelf. That's not a good example. So these are not batched. I draw each panel individually, and I do that because of the strict requirements on drawing order. So this is not a good example. This is 1 quad per each of these elements. So what's a better one? Bookshelf. Where's a place where I use a batch quad? I don't have that many places. Maybe the clock. Well, here's one. Let's see. I needed 5 elements at some point. What were they? What do I need 4 for? Let's go grepping. Texture quad batch. There should be a whole bunch of them. Where did I use them? Obviously, the class itself contains a bunch. My sandbox. There was one really good place where I actually was using it. Clock digit. So clock digit is a place where I have 8 number segments. This is one where I set the UV coordinate and the quad for each of those segments. So this is a case where I have one texture and multiple quads. Clock button? Button. Button was it. Okay, button. Set style. Okay. A button is comprised of several components. I can also have a logical pattern for groups, I guess, of textures with similar samplers and batch draw those. Yeah, you can. You do need to be a little careful about things like draw order. So you're going to draw your background. You're going to draw your foreground. Things on your foreground may have an order as well, right? And so when you batch draw, you do have to be careful that things that are drawn in a single batch aren't going to overwrite something you wanted in front. So sometimes you have to break up your batches just because of render order. But yeah, the button contains 4 corners, 4 edges, and a middle piece, and each of those, I'm setting that quad texture for the corners, for the edges, for the other edges, and for the center. So here's a case where I have 3 textures that I'm shoving into one texture quad batch. And all 9 of those quads will render with those 3 textures. So if you look at the actual render call, where's my render call? Render call. Update state. Where did it go? Where's render? So texture quads render. Okay, here's what I did. I count the number of slots. I go through my array of 5 up to 5 texture slots because that's the way that my renderer is written. My shader is written is for 5, and I say if the texture I have stored in this slot is null, not null, bind that texture. Then I just send the whole sampler. Then I do the main call and the draw. That's it. Find the textures in the slot. Then it's looked up in texture batch. Oh, whatever. In that shader. So I also have a logical pattern for groups, I guess, of textures with similar samplers and batch draw those and have multiple of these. Yes. Yes, you can. So, for example, you may have a background draw, then you may have like a tiled overlay if you're doing like a top-down map thing, in which case all the tiles for, grass versus path, those would all be from the same texture. Probably, if you were to write it efficiently. So your entire tile map would be rendered in one call. Then you'd render on top of it any, trees or mountains in a couple of other calls. But yeah, you can also go too far the other way. If you send too much data and tell the GPU to draw a ton of stuff too much, well, then you can also just overwhelm the GPU buffer. It's about finding that happy medium sweet spot where you're sending enough data to keep the GPU busy, but the data bus is not idle or overfilled. A texture atlas would be easier, I guess, for this. Yeah, for some of these things, absolutely. In fact, I use one in my game. It's just 1 or 2 of the elements of the game are large enough but not big enough to fill a nice power of 2. So I just have one big texture that contains a whole bunch of small elements as a texture atlas. Lots of different ways to skin the cat. So, where were we? Oh, we were fixing the scheduler. Warning. We did the equals thing again. Shame on us. Okay. Just about ready. So hopefully this runs, even though we're not using that sound. Oh. So nothing should be broken. Okay, so nothing seems broken. Very nice. Okay. So I haven't broken anything yet. Let's do another thing. Action sequence.hpp. Start sound and play sound. Wait a minute. You know what? Let's not screw around with this. Let's just do this. Yeah, let's not do that. Okay. So what we need then is game scene. The place where I hear a lot of clicked sounds is in letter clicked. Here. And maybe what we do is instead we say, I'm going to start scheduler get sound. Sound warehouse. Somewhere there's a play here, right? Oh. This thing is initialized with keyboard click. Let's do that. So if we click those letters real fast, we should get that sound every time anyways. Which maybe I should have demoed the sound not playing. That's probably That's probably a good idea. Let's demo it with the sound not playing on the second click. Just so you can see what I'm talking about. In which case I won't have to wait. Okay. So we go into a game. What? Two. Am I doing something wrong here? GBR. That sound shouldn't be triggering at all. Do I just need to rebuild again? I don't want to. I don't understand. Batteries. That is indeed an invalid FPS sample index. Which should be 0. Huh. Okay, well, maybe we need to rebuild. I'll be going now. I'll try to finish the Pong clone today. Nice. Good. Good luck with your Pong clone. Let's see a demo of it tomorrow. Maybe a screen capture or something. Have a good one. We'll see how many of my code changes changed the way that scene measures FPS. So I think it's just a memory misalignment issue from old object files not updating properly. So clean should fix it. If not, then I will be truly puzzled. Okay, I think I have an idea. Scene depends on scheduler. So if the scheduler size changed, which it did with its new array, and scene object wasn't built updated, then it would have the wrong size for the scheduler. So probably should have just done a tidy rebuild instead of a full rebuild, but I hadn't thought it through all the way because the sound warehouse shouldn't have any effect on our build. Okay. Okay. I'm looking at the down the barrel of integrating my Steam stuff. Download the latest SDK. I have to decide what elements. Getting started is always a good place to start. Set up Steamworks account, did that, download the SDK, working on that. Create your Steam build and depost. Each application up running, you'll need to upload a build. Uploading to Steam. Configure Steamworks. You're free to use as few or as many features as you like. See a list of features. Creating your store page and pricing. Preparing for release. Okay. Features. Oh my goodness. I don't need that. Don't need that. I don't need that. I don't need that. Stats and achievements. Users' data is associated with their Steam account. Each user's achievements and statistics can be formatted and displayed in their Steam community profile. So maybe that one. I don't care about friends in chat. Steam Cloud. Oof, Steam Cloud, maybe. Steam input library, supports over 300 devices. Nope, right now I don't care. Steam DRM, no. Kind of don't care about that. Error reporting. Steam inventory. Steam keys. Customers to redeem your product on Steam. Keys can be generated for any packages on Steam, including base products, DLC, or free demos. Not really. Persistent leaderboards. See, that would be kind of cool. Oof. Maybe Steam leaderboard. Steam overlay, don't care. Remote play, screenshots, don't care. Timelines. Nope, don't care. Steam voice. Nope. Steam workshop. Yeah, nope. User authentication and ownership. As long as they install it by Steam, I don't know that I care. Okay. Interesting. So yeah, there's maybe half a dozen features I may want. Hey, the build just finished. Nice. So let's try this again. And hopefully that's all it was. It's the change in physical size of the scheduler. Yeah, much better. Okay, what were we even testing? Oh, clicking letters. So if I click S twice, it should go click click when it goes green and then red. But it doesn't. The second click doesn't happen because I clicked too fast. The first sound hadn't finished playing. So what we're going to do is here, every time you click a sound, we'll get a fresh sound instance from the scheduler. And then it will play both of those at the same time. They'll overlap each other. So we can click that letter as fast as we want, and it won't matter. Whoa, whoa, my sounds are weird. What happened? That sounded fine. Whoa, whoa, sounds are goofy. What did I do? What is going on? What happened? That's still muted. I'm not getting weird audio off of an open stream. Is it my microphone? Okay, what happened to my sound? Okay, maybe OBS did something weird. Something is very weird going on with the audio. Okay, so using direct monitor, it sounds fine. So I don't think my USB thing is dead. Audio check. Capture at the audio USB device is fine. if we disable the video. That actually does sound better. What's going on here? Okay, rebooted the camera. Did that fix the microphone? I turned the video off. Seems to be okay, although slightly broken up. Okay, this is a mess. I'm going to end the stream. I'm going to restart OBS and restart the stream. And hopefully that clears it up. All right, so see you in a few minutes.